Welcome to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tattooing Network.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Your source for the latest Legion news, opinion, and analysis.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
John Archiquette.
Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
Matt Turner.
I'm not afraid.
And Joshua Gray.
You will be.
What's going on, Outriders? John, Josh, Matt coming back at you again from the hive of scum and villainy, Power 9 Games in Las Vegas, Nevada. What's going on, guys?
Now, wait a minute. Is Power 9 Games the hive of scum and villainy, or is Las Vegas the hive of scum and
I
villainy?
feel like anywhere we are would be the hive of scum
Have
and
you
villainy.
ever seen them standing next to each other in the same room?
No.
Okay, that's good because
It'd be a very large room.
Okay.
So we're in week 1 of the Han Solo takeover of Star Wars Legion, and tell us
I
how
am
you
also
really
excited that I could squeak in positivity. Thank you,
This
Josh.
room's gonna smell
for joining
really
me
bad. So
and expressing your squeedly spooge.
before we get into how Han Solo is affecting our lives positively or negatively, let's go ahead and clear up some misnomers from last week's podcast. Matt, would you like to redeem yourself?
No, I would not.
Okay, moving on.
No, we were very kindly contacted by some sharp-eared listeners from last
Sharp-eyed?
week's Sharp-eyed listeners from last week's episode. And apparently when I was riffing through the rules on some of the new stuff that came out with the Commandos, specifically the Commandos, that we had gotten wrong. Specifically, so we can correct the record so people aren't finding out on their own after they listen to us and assume that's how it worked, because you should never believe what we say, honestly.
I'm going to see people on Nova this weekend.
But the Outriders said...
on their little radio show. But so high velocity only applies if it is the only weapon being used in that dice pool. And let me make
Not
sure.
necessarily.
Okay, no,
Because
thanks,
it's every weapon in the dice pool has to have the high velocity keyword.
You're right.
There you go.
I don't think there's a way.
As
you
of
can
right
have-
now, there is no way
Right,
to do that.
okay,
But,
okay, fair enough. So you
don't want to get another nasty gram
Right,
email,
of
or
course.
so let's be as
actually,
granular as possible
Yes,
here.
fair. Thank you. Good point. So if you have multiple sniper rifles in the same unit, possibly somehow, maybe with scout snipers with the
Or
Empire,
some stuff
Who knows?
upcoming. Who
But
knows, right?
then you get the high velocity, so that's dope. But you don't get the A280 shots or whatever in there as well. And then the other one, God, I had to read this like 3 times, and I kept messing it up. And then Josh came and said something, and I was like, okay, you do it. But, for the proton charge saboteur, basically, I thought it was an action to detonate. And basically what it comes down to is it's a free action. So it would trigger... And follow me on this, Josh. Correct me if I'm wrong. This
Sure.
is how I think I finally broke it down. It's like a landmine. So if something ends or an action occurs near within the area 1 of the proton charge, a unit that has detonate 1 proton charge for free can say, okay, we're going to detonate it now.
Okay.
So it's basically a mine that you get to decide when it goes off.
So do you still have to have that proton unit
You still
living?
have to have the unit with the proton
Okay.
charge saboteur in it.
Yeah, you can't just run over and have somebody else pick up the detonator and, then fire it. You're close.
Okay.
It's not range specific. The way the rule states in the book,
For
it
the
says
blast,
any
yeah.
time any player completes an action, you can trigger it. So consider it like a standby action, but it's global, and the only thing you can do is detonate that charge.
Okay, but there wouldn't really anybody reason to detonate it unless there's something
Right.
that's within the range 1 blast.
Yeah, there is. I mean, if you have,
I want to kill your own guys. Say no, you can't take them out.
if it looks like maybe you're going the way the battle ends up flowing, you're going to be bringing like 3 guys in of your own. By the time somebody else gets in there, then if you can blow it prematurely to kind of remove it as an obstacle or something like that.
I guess.
I mean,
okay.
Corner cases to be sure.
Sure.
But there could be. I mean, how many times playing Minefield have you put something down and went, oh goody, I'm gonna suicide one of my own guys over it, right?
Yeah.
And then
it doesn't work out.
And then it doesn't end up detonating.
And then you.
And then now you've got 3 more guys coming behind
Yep.
it.
Gotcha.
In that kind of a situation, maybe it might be advantageous to just blow it ahead of time.
Cool rule, and it just broke my brain for a while. So
Another
apologies.
I have
Admittedly,
one more.
it's not that hard to do.
No.
Yeah.
I'm a simple creature.
One more question to possibly make this even more complicated. Can you put down a second proton charge before you blow up the first one?
Yes.
And in the situation in which you have 2 proton charges out there, you only blow
it says
one.
Detonate 1
Gotcha.
proton charge.
But if you have 2 teams,
yes,
one unit can put out more than one, and then each team can detonate once per round. So if you have 2 teams with the ability to detonate, you can detonate other people's. That unit doesn't have to be the unit that laid it down. Doesn't have to be the unit that detonates it.
Gotcha.
As long as you have the detonate keyword, you can detonate any proton charge on the field.
Yeah, it has to be that proton charge. Any chance you could do like a custom sculpt, like a Junkrat or something for my proton charge guy? Be hilarious.
I mean, I'm not a sculptor. There are some guys on
there's some crazy stuff
Star
out
Wars
there.
Legion
Yeah.
who are on the Facebook
Darth
group.
Maul one that keeps popping up blows my mind.
Well, the guy who did the entire Rogue One cast,
right?
Well, that one still to me is the most phenomenal. So we're seeing some very talented sculptors. I'm a tracer. Okay, I paint what
You're
other
a
people have already
tracer.
Are we hitting, what was that, Chasing Amy references 2 weeks in a row now?
No, that was that Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
Hey, look, you know what? I will quote Kevin Smith movies all day because I'm an old millennial. Okay.
Even Jersey Girl.
Oh, okay. Look. Before we turn this into a film critique podcast,
So anyways, thank you for letting us know.
Red
Please-
State.
Yeah.
no, all right.
Please, if you do catch something that we misspoke about or need clarification, do let us know, and because we want to get the things right too, and don't want to be spreading misinformation.
Maybe one of these days we can have like a contest, and we can start intentionally putting in
Oh,
bad info,
and then we
and
can-
like the first one to email us and says, "Haha, found the error." We give them a prize.
And really, it's just plausible deniability.
Right.
I was gonna say,
I mean, that's what FFG does with most of their articles. There's always like one error in every article, right? Can we out FFG?
No, I think they have years of experience.
Yeah.
You caught us. We put that there intentionally.
Just wanted to see if you were paying attention.
I mean, in all fairness, though, we do, promote the fact that we are part of the podcast channel that.
We're the entertainment side of Legion. Not
Well,
the,
we don't pretend to know
the
everything.
knowing
We just
things
know how
side.
to record it. So, besides those, though, we did get a chance to get a couple games in with the new Han Solo and Rebel Commandos. And Josh, how did you feel about playing against them today?
It was fine. I mean, I played a game with Matt, and he had Han, and he had a sniper team. Sniper team, I rolled up second turn with
I got
second
one
turn
shot
with a
off
bike.
with them.
Yeah, I got one shot off, killed one dude, and I rolled it
like,
up with
oh.
a bike. It's like, well, let's take that off of the field just right now.
They killed
Done
one
with
trooper.
that.
Okay, so they definitely didn't get their points back.
Yeah, I know. Not didn't get their points, but Han is annoying. And Matt ran Han as a solo commander.
Oh, really? Okay.
No pun intended. As a single commander,
Hey,
sorry.
Nick made that joke earlier.
I know.
And actually, that was inspired me to let's try Han by himself right now, since Josh was spoiling for a game.
Yeah, and I brought Darth Vader just to kind of like, haha, no white dice shenanigans for you with Saber Throw and Pierce 3 and all that fun stuff. Go ahead and re-roll your 3 white dice. I don't care because Pierce. Han's command cards are very annoying as an opposing player.
I love his command
Yeah,
cards.
his command
very
cards are
good.
really good.
Yeah.
He wasn't as heavy of a hitter as I thought he would be.
He's definitely.
But he does consistent spread out damage.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to just like Luke or Vader, he's not just going to roll up on one single unit of troopers and just completely wreck it.
No.
He'll gradually chip away at your unit effectiveness. I haven't had a chance to see how he synergizes with anybody else, with either Luke or Leia or Chewie.
Chewie.
It's going to be interesting when all 4 of those characters are released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And seeing there's a lot of synergy there, and I think there's a lot of potential for Rebels to maybe be very overpowered, because you look at the Empire and they have units that are very solid on their own, but at the time being don't synergize well with other characters. If I've got 3 characters on the board that work really well together and pass a bunch of tokens around and give you unbelievable action economy for the same pricing as 2 units that don't work as well together, quote unquote, we'll see.
Yeah, but when you start picking off these characters and reduce their effectiveness, it hurts the army as a whole.
Sure, yeah, it does. But I mean, if you look at a scenario where you have Leia, Han, and Chewie, right? So Leia goes and gives Han a dodge token, but as long as they're within range 1, Han and Chewie trade tokens back and forth.
Yeah,
and that's not capped. Okay, so Leia gives a dodge token to Han, which then gives it to Chewie, and then Han goes and aims and fires. Well, that gives an aim token to Chewie as well.
Yep.
And then Chewie goes and dodges and then shoots. Well, that gives another dodge token back to Han. I mean, that's action.
There's great synergy.
You're
I mean, absolutely right.
I think you need that for a Super Friends kind of build.
Right, but what that ends up doing is that turtles up those units so much that you literally, with duck and cover and all of these other things.
Cool. Destroy the 60% of the rest of the army that isn't getting that stuff and see how much they're scoring on objectives.
And you're also talking about sinking, almost 300 points into 3 characters.
3 characters. Where you look at a tooled up Vader's 250.
Yeah.
But
individually
and has no chance of touching any of that. Really. Legitimately.
Vader's there's no argument that Vader's nowhere near the character that Leia is or that Han is right now.
Basically, you're going to have to take Palpatine and unlimited power him and eat away 2/3 of your health to do damage to those 3 together.
But if they're bubbled up as they are going to have to be to get that full synergy, that's ripe for ultimate power.
That's a great counterplay.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fun. I can't wait to see what happens with all these units that are coming out and are not out yet.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to see a lot, they have to be in close because all their guns shoot range 2.
Yep.
And, all they're have to
signal. And I think
on it? I don't know.
I don't think we saw that yet.
Have we not?
I would imagine it would be range 3.
But I don't think we just paid that much attention. Yeah, I think it's going to go range 3.
The Wookiee warrior bowcaster is range 3.
Okay, so then more than likely we'll see a range 3 bowcaster. Yeah. But either way, Han and Leia. For Han to get his gunslinger, which you're right, it's not going to destroy a unit. But Matt and I got a chance to play just the day after we did the podcast last week on stream, and we both ran solo Leia lists, and Han Solo was doing work for both of us. He was out there.
If you'd like to see this game, you can actually see it on Frontier Gaming Channel.
Yeah, so you can still check that out.
So it is all. It should be up there. If it's not up, it'll be up very soon.
Yeah, it was a good game, and
it was a lot of fun.
Han was doing work for both of us. I think you wiped out 2 units in one turn.
Yeah, well, basically, you had 2 units of 2 guys left, and he ran forward and went pew pew.
Yeah, but when you're trying to hide those 2 guys behind buildings and trying to seize objectives with it, the
cleanup potential for Han is really really high. I like it a lot because it's consistent. It's 2 red dice. It's only 2, but it is red dice, and it's pretty awesome.
Yep.
And plus, he's got his own command card that can feed him a aim and a dodge, so that's really nice.
And he's so hard to hit. And Josh brought up a good point earlier, talking about using Vader against him. It does give some viability to Vader because Vader is the only one that has that
You never really attacked Vader with against my Han.
Yeah, he was busy. He was busy wrecking other things.
Yeah. He killed my land speeder.
Yeah.
and then took out the ATRT.
Yeah, took out an ATRT and a unit of troops.
Yeah,
I mean
so
he was
doing work.
He killed his he killed his weight in points, but I just think Imperial units, the characters, compared to what you get versus what you get for the Rebel units, the amount of synergy that they get for their price point, there's a miscosting.
Okay.
Imperial units are overcosted vis-a-vis the synergy that you get off an action economy that you get off of, Luke like Leia, Han, and Chewie.
Cool story. They get red defensive dice. But actually how you could fix that? You could start playing Rebels.
Heyo.
Grass is greener over here, man.
Hey, I heard you got 2.0 kits in for X-Wing. You mind if I take a look at those?
That's it. Yeah. This is how this is going to go down.
Yeah, and I thought that was funny,
Are you threatening
too.
to walk? You will never work in this town again.
And it was funny because I came in today to play a game with you, and the first, you came around the corner holding the X-Wing 2.0 stuff.
I did.
And you're like, "Hey, Josh, want to play X-Wing?" And I'm like, "Do you want to do a podcast with two people from now on?"
I think he was threatening to kick me off is what was happening.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So my plan today was to prep all my X-Wing stuff because we're doing a stream tomorrow night where I'm supposed to be playing it with people. And I haven't even gotten a chance to look at the rules and the new cards or anything. So, but you're like,
not
let's
that
get
different.
a game of Legion. Oh, okay,
It's
cool.
not that different.
Cool.
There's a couple of new steps, and they've kind of reordered some stuff, but
just in case, since I knew you're an X-Wing player. But no, I was more than happy to play Legion too. Especially since it's been a while since we played.
What's the number one rule of rehab? Like somebody who's in rehab?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't offer them more alcohol. Okay? I'm in X-Wing rehab. Okay? I'm on like step 7 right now. And if you're like, "Hey, Josh, here's a bunch of X-Wing stuff,"
I'm gonna shame you when you relapse.
you're never gonna.
We've got a token upgrade coin.
Yeah,
that keeps in
I fell off the repulsor lift and I went back to X-Wing.
Okay, now that I know that this is a sensitive thing for you.
It's not sensitive. I just
sensitive.
Speaking of rehab and possibly having some interventions on people, Matt, we need to stage an intervention with you on these freaking T-47s.
Hey, it actually did okay today.
Did it?
It did
yeah,
okay.
it did okay.
It did okay.
It I moved a unit out of cover because I had to play pretty aggressively because
I was just playing a single one this time. And
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, this was very different from what we played.
I had to play pretty aggressively because I ran Vader. It was
somebody decided Long March was a good idea for that.
No, it wasn't that. Actually, the board state actually set up for me really well. But because we were playing intercepted transmissions, I had to get, and I was down on activations, I had to try and get up and into cover quickly.
Okay.
You were playing, what, 8 to 10 activations?
8 to 10,
so
yeah.
I had 10, he had 8.
Yeah. And the first turn, we ended up having to roll off, and I went first. So he had 3 activations to go after I did. So I ended up screwing up, and I made a mistake and moved a unit before I should have moved it, and moved it, basically left it unexposed, or left it exposed, and Matt came in and aimed and fired with and basically smoked that unit. So I was already like, he didn't kill it, but might as well have.
Yeah.
I think it was just down to the unit leader at that point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a good place to be in.
Using my new dice rolling app, which Josh thoroughly loved, and I liked it.
No, it's stupid. I don't like it because then I've got to try and look and see what dice you rolled.
You're right. I'll try to put it on my iPad so you can see.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, it's 2 hits
and getting it mixed up.
I don't. Not that you would hide anything, and not that I don't trust you if you roll the app and tell me it's 2, but it's just kind of a here, look, here's my phone. Here, look, here's my phone. I don't like it because you could roll it and then
I did show him when I got the double white block.
Yeah.
That's incredulous.
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe it either.
Yeah. So, I don't like apps. I mean, you've got dice. Roll the dice. And I can understand something like 40K where it's like, here's my attack pool with 70 dice, and you roll
that would have been helpful yesterday.
Roll me 70 dice on an app. Fine.
Bunk, 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 bunk,
Yeah.
bunk.
And it didn't make pew pew sounds. It made like droid sounds, which was dumb.
Yeah, I heard
Give me
that.
pew pew
That's
sounds.
Yeah, I mean, you can silence them if you like, but I turned them all the way up.
So does
Mostly 'cause I
the
knew it would annoy him.
does the FFG Dice app work for all FFG games?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can do
I think
X-Wing
I paid
on
like
there. and-
$5 last year for the RPG.
Yeah.
Because there were
Okay.
special RPG dice, and we didn't have enough sets to go around when we were playing it.
So you can
But,
do Star Wars Legion, you can do X-Wing, you can
yeah,
do
yeah, all that
Lord of,
stuff.
or
Or
Legend of the Five
Armada.
Rings RPG.
I don't know if they'll
It's
put
just
R, I
Star
think
Wars.
It's just Star
It's just
Wars.
Star
Okay.
Wars dice.
So-
Okay.
But can you do Legion?
Imperial
Can you
Assault.
Destiny? Does it do Destiny dice?
No, I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine it does Destiny dice.
Okay.
I could pull it up and look real quick.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay,
But
well,
you can, yeah, you can. It's okay. I've only seen one person every unit in an actual tournament.
yeah.
I think there's kind of a stigma with coming
Okay.
to the tournament with that. but-
Armada, Imperial Assault, Legion, Rebellion. So that's the board game.
Yeah.
Star Wars role playing and X-wing.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay. So number of uses, and you said it was $5?
I think so. I don't know if it's changed or not. That's the noises it makes. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. You have to, like,
and
actually
and
shake it
tells
to
you
do
the
it, too.
results.
So
You don't have to. You can just hit
stupid.
the roll thing, and then it tells you all the results.
I
And
like
then you
it.
can hit those, and then hit the reroll, and then yeah.
It's like R2-D2's rolling it for you.
Yeah. It's BB great.
I really wish that, like,
Yeah, you're gonna be doing this spot. Where's the X-wing stuff, Matt?
It's all dead. It's all dead.
I wish like we should just like have video or photos of whenever Josh is just utterly disappointed and thoroughly
That needs to be a T-shirt, really.
right. Just Josh's his face when he's just not having it. Speaking of not having it, all right. So we kind of skipped over the Star Wars news portion of the podcast, but
Team Fireball,
Team Fireball, yeah.
Fireball.
which
So-
is a cinnamon whiskey, if I recall.
Yes, it is.
They're all a bunch of drunks.
Which is
you
what
know.
John's gonna need to watch the show.
It's gonna take a lot of Fireball for me to watch Resistance.
Okay, so I think somebody pointed out that Filoni said this is aimed at a younger audience.
Yeah, it's a
so
kids show.
it-
We're talking about Star Wars Resistance for those of you who
Yeah,
aren't
right,
keeping
right.
up on the news.
And the reason it's news is because they released a whole bunch of promotional artwork for it now, and
Not only a promotional artwork, but like a 5-minute behind the scenes thing where they
Yes.
talk about a lot
Yep.
of they talk to a lot of the actors and they kind of explain their characters and there's some show footage in there. I don't mind the animation. I know it's too bright of a palette for Mr. Doom and Gloom over there.
I like the
Everything's gotta
grittiness.
be
you know?
grimdark.
Yeah, I like
Grimdark.
I like grim, dark, and gritty, and man, like the Batman. The best animated show was the Batman animated series because it was
Yeah.
that was
dark and
pretty
because it was
awesome.
Batman.
yeah. Well,
I mean-
I like Star Wars. The best Star Wars movie was The Empire Strikes Back. Okay, I want grim. It's war. Okay, it's Star Wars, not bright shiny pod racing.
Here's some money. Go see a Star Wars.
But yeah, it looks for what the animation style is. It does look cool. It's not my style. I'm not a Star Wars brony, so I'm not gonna.
Well, it's coming out October 7th,
Watch
I
kids'
believe,
shows.
So, hey,
What?
you watch it, buddy. Don't you compare us to those people.
Bronies. Sorry for you guys out there who are bronies.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, it might be interesting. You guys will have to give me your review on it after you watch it, so
Yeah.
I can pretend like I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, am I ever going to get my Blu-rays back?
Yeah,
by
I'll
the
get
way?
back to you.
Okay, thanks. for my Rebel shows that you're not watching.
I made it like 6 episodes in
Okay.
Did you quit?
Well,
I quit.
Then
You
that
tapped
shows you're
out?
I tapped
losing
out.
you.
Why?
because it just wasn't the thing.
He
It wasn't
doesn't
for me.
like things that
Oh,
make people happy.
man, it gets so much better.
Yeah.
Like it really ramps up in the second season.
Yeah.
But
It gets darker.
it's a lot of table setting in the first season.
All right. Well, maybe when I get back to
when they're
painting.
setting up Ezra's fall to the dark side.
Well, there you go. Now, spoiler alert. There's no reason to watch.
God,
it.
didn't
I
see
said
that coming.
Setting up, but
A
show
Jedi,
Jedi, yeah.
a Jedi in hiding, training a Padawan with daddy issues. What could go wrong?
other Star Wars
That's
news.
not a trope.
Yeah. No. Yeah. How was your Star Wars game? that I almost got to play in, but then got canceled.
Which one's? Oh, it was good. It was a lot of fun. Friend of mine, for our listeners, friend of mine came out and we ran a Star Wars Saga RPG game.
I love those books.
It was so much fun.
They were oddly shaped but fun.
And he's such my friend JG. He's a great DM.
Does he listen to the show?
No, because he doesn't play
about
Legion.
it.
Yeah, okay. But it's kind of he's been running the same game for like a decade. Like all of us, he's a former Air Force vet. So what he would do is every time he went to a new duty station, he would just collect like 4 or 5 people that like Star Wars and like play RPGs, and he would just make a new group and flow them into the timeline of his game.
Lots of nerds in AFA, is what you're
saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And other players that he liked from other player characters that he liked from his other games, he would then flow into the game as NPCs that the team, that the groups would meet. When I started playing with him in Virginia, he had 4 different game groups going in the same universe at the same time.
Wow.
And it was awesome.
I just mostly because I just want to bring up, I thought the setting was super cool.
Yeah, the setting's cool.
Alternate timeline.
It's an alternate history where the Skywalkers, plural, basically never became good.
They all fell to the dark side.
Right. Yeah. And the Empire is currently being ruled by the benevolent Empress Leia. It's so cool. There's been a droid uprising, and droids are now completely outlawed. There's the Force users that are kind of rebelling, but they're not like Jedi. No. They're just Force users because there's a big stigma against Force users, and their Force users are almost controlled, kind of like sanctioned psychers in the 40K universe.
Okay.
They're kind of controlled and aimed as a weapon in that. So the Force users are trying to throw off the yoke, but not because they want to be good. They're basically terrorists, and like they bomb trains and they do all. Yeah, it's
oh wow.
Yeah, it's grimdark. You'd love it.
Yeah,
it's like totally cool.
This sounds like a really cool like graphic novel series.
It is. He's a great DM, and I love it. It's a lot of fun.
And enough tangent there.
Yeah.
So what were we talking about?
Well, one thing that I guess we needed to touch on with Han yet was how does he rank amongst the other commanders?
Oh.
So now that we've all had a chance to either play using him or against him.
Golly, that's tough because I play both sides.
See, so you're probably the best judge on this because...
Cool. Well, I'm going to make proclamations and say Han is by far the best.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I actually really like Veers.
Wow, you really backed off your pedestal really quickly.
That's a lot of pressure to put on me, man. I don't know anything, so... I really am enjoying the playstyle of Han now. I feel so. I've always been a Han fanboy, so it's tough thinking objectively about him because he's going to be my go-to guy for Rebels for probably a long time. I do really enjoy what Veers does for the army, for the Imperial Army. So in that way, I think he's a little bit more important, especially for Empire players. But definitely Han is my favorite Rebel commander right now.
Yeah. I would say right now I still put Leia just a little bit above him.
That's fair.
And I put him just a little above Luke.
Okay.
I think I like Luke a little bit more than a lot of people do.
Yeah, no, you've consistently run Luke past when Leia was introduced too. Yeah. So you've definitely given them both their fair shakes.
But in all fairness, though, I do like to run a little bit more melee heavy.
Cool.
So
well, yeah. So you've admitted that before. What do you think? Where is Han in the spectrum of your spectrum?
I think he's a great support commander. I think he needs a teammate. And I think he needs another commander to really get the most out of him.
I like playing him like a super solo.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean...
he doesn't support. He just goes out in there and guns things. And, hey, if you happen to get some benefit from his leadership or something, good for you, kid.
Don't get cocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, now, we didn't really touch on this at all yet. Where do you think the commandos fit in this? How did you feel about using the commandos? Because I was a little bit underwhelmed.
So we talked about this a little bit on the stream, and I think you really need to run 2 units of them to start seeing some effect, whether they're just picking off a guy each round and putting suppression out. because it's so easy to clear one suppression. I think 2 units is where you need to be, and if there's a key unit that you want to slow down, boom, you pop the 2 suppression. It's much less likely that they get it off that round.
Yeah.
I still haven't played with 2. I'm about to go out and get another box of them, and give them a try probably the next time I try Rebels. But
see, I think that their best asset is the fact that they add another activation.
Sure.
It's like 40 points and you get another activation out of it.
Yeah.
That's really their best asset, in my opinion. They can harass a unit, but they're not going to put a lot of damage onto something.
I think they're going to be better served. And everybody looks at the big, sexy sniper rifle and goes, ooh, sniper teams.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to get the most use out of them with is the proton charges. Run them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah,
upset
alert.
Depending on how your map.
we have to talk to Mr. Pena about how people are running them on the tabletop or how they have been.
Right, but I mean, I think that if you just take, if you put on the upgrade that gives them Scout 2, that lets them do Scout 2, deploy them.
Oh, it's not an upgrade. It's just the.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
that's just the card.
on their
There,
card.
yeah.
Okay.
For the
There's an
operatives.
upgrade coming out that gives Scout 1. Put that on them, and now they have Scout 3.
Wow.
Activate them first turn, take a move, throw out a proton charge, and then just get them behind cover.
Yeah.
And use that as area denial for the board.
Sure.
I think that's I think that's going to be a lot more useful than
Defending those 1.4Ds.
something. Yeah. If lots of fleet troopers, okay, you got to get close. All right, well, here I'm gonna preempt and define the battle space a little bit, throw out some proton charges, and run it back into cover, and now I've closed off an entire avenue of attack.
Yeah,
and unlike a mine, I don't have to detonate it as soon as one of your guys comes into range. I can hold it and wait to see if you bring 2 or 3 into range, because that's after you've deployed. That's just what you got to do.
Yeah.
And it does get you another activation. I think the sniper team dies entirely too quickly with just 2 dudes.
Well, I mean, having the low profile, you
Low
have to
profile
have
helps,
them in
but
cover.
that they have range of the entire board. I think that's where you keep them protected.
But
I wasn't expecting you to send a bike squad like straight at them full blast, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is where they die.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's all it takes.
Okay.
And the problem with those is, to be able to see somebody else, you have to be seen.
Yeah.
Which means you can be shot at. And once other snipers come out, we
were doing enemy at the gates with our game because we both had snipers.
And that basically, once everybody has access to snipers, I should say,
right?
That makes it a very, very vulnerable to counter battery fire, or if somebody brings an ATST. You're with
Mortar Kombat. Yeah.
But okay, you've got once you start throwing out suppression and that mortar,
well, it's for sure.
Yeah,
but it's a fairly cheap activation right now.
It is, and I think that's where its utility comes in the most.
Keep them protected, then cool. Hey, that's you're usually popping off a guy each round. So.
Yeah, I think it brings a lot of utility. But yeah, I'd rather. I'm going to try and run them first as.
Oh, so you are playing Rebels?
Oh,
when the scouts come out.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to run them more as a grenadier unit than as a sniper unit.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, the next game I play, I'll probably try to get them out with the proton charges.
Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about the terrain aspect of things coming up here in a little bit because
we did that weeks ago.
Well, apparently people aren't listening, or
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
But we've got some possible solutions for that, and we'll get back to that in just a little bit.
Tune in every Wednesday to Radio Free Tatooine, a Star Wars podcast that's better than some and worse than others. Take a trip to a water cooler far, far away as we bring some casual, fun conversation into the Star Wars podcasting community. Hosted by me, Sean, my sister Amy, and John. Radio Free Tatooine. We may not know what we're talking about, but we sure know how to record it. For more, visit RadioFreeTatooine.com. a proud member of the Radio Free Tatooine Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tatooine Network, recorded on location at Power 9 Games. Whether you're looking for the latest releases from Legion, X-Wing, 40K, Magic, or any of our other extensive inventory of board and card games, head to power9games.com and use coupon code OUTRIDER10 to get 10% off your order. Plus, shipping is free on orders over $100. Now, back to the Outriders.
Welcome back, Outriders, with John, Josh, and Matt here at Power 9 Games. And we're going to talk a little bit about something we probably talked about a couple weeks back.
Oh, we did talk about it. So probably we talked about it.
Yeah, so it may still be an issue. Nova is going on right now over in Northern Virginia. And the photos today.
Grounds, Josh.
Yeah. Stomping grounds. So we saw some of the first photos of the Legion tables, and they look a bit scant.
Again.
Yeah.
And now, we did talk about this with Gen Con, and we found out later on from Nick Freeman that actually the tables look better than what they were originally shown.
So they made some improvements as the days went on.
Yeah. So we're making this disclaimer immediately just based on the fact that these are based on initial photos sent in by people who were there.
Posted up to the Legion Facebook group.
Yeah.
Now, in those people's credit, today the pictures that went up were posted about an hour before the tournament started. So the tables were set. I mean, that's the way they were going to be.
Now, as I recall, they said that it was going to be the same terrain kit from Gen Con to Nova. Am I crazy in remembering that? Is that
may
a
be,
thing?
But
so I mean, did they spread it over more tables?
I think that makes it worse.
Or,
honestly,
okay.
when you get so much feedback from the community that these tables are unacceptable, and you roll into the largest tabletop wargaming event in the country,
is it?
Yes,
Is
Nova
it?
Open. Yes, that's what they bill themselves as, is the largest tabletop wargaming convention in the country. You can't roll in like that and be like, "Yo, look at all the 40K stuff, and look at all the 30K stuff, and look at all the Age of Sigmar stuff, and here's our table with our
Did they sell
budget
out all
terrain."
their tables?
I don't know.
I'm wondering if they were able to like salvage some if they prepped too many, or
It's,
I don't know.
It's not necessarily
We're
the
not
fact
there.
that it's just sparse, but it's just big rocks. Everything out there is big rocks. There's no area terrain. There's no little pieces. I mean, there's barricades, a couple of barricades, and I'm not even going to
Barricade.
No. It doesn't deserve it. It doesn't deserve it.
I got you.
No, the tables have turned.
No. It doesn't deserve it.
I'm
It is
on
not
the other
worthy.
side of the barricade now.
It is not worthy.
Well, again, so we're not there. We haven't seen all the tables.
If you know it's a problem, fix it.
Is it a problem? Because I mean,
yeah.
I could have sworn when we talked to Nick, he was saying it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't
there
a problem
was a couple
at
of
Gen
bottom
Con.
tables. So I think we need to have reports from the players after they played some events.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying this to speak ill of anybody, but you're also talking to somebody who won one of those days. Of course, they didn't have a problem with it; they won.
Okay, that's fair.
You know, and that's not a value judgment on anybody. You know, of course, when you win,
Colored perception. Sure.
You know, of course, when you win, anybody who's complaining, it's fly better. You know, I mean, so, but when you have, and online communities are going to be vocal if they disagree with something, but you know, there's almost 90 comments on the Facebook thread. I just looked at it, and none of them are really outwardly supportive of, oh, well, you know, it's a bunch of people that are looking at it going, this is unacceptable. And honestly, it is. If you're going to have a world championship, if you're going to have premier events, it can't be amateur hour. You can't come out here with terrain that looks like you just pulled it off the shelf at Michael's and you know, here's my 4 pieces of terrain. You know, they've got some.
It's still got fish gravel in them.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. Michael's is a pretty good selection of things you can use for terrain.
But some of the terrain just doesn't even make sense. It's like they've got a large piece of terrain that sits in the corner.
Yeah.
What good is that? It's no good. It doesn't do anything.
Maybe you put a sniper team up there, but that's about it.
Maybe. You know, what are you doing with that? it's nonsensical, and it's one of those things, and I've said it before, and I'm honestly not trying to take digs at FFG, but this is kind of what happens when you've got people that don't. Trying to word this diplomatically, when you let the game designers run the events outside of that, right? Game designers should design games.
But Alex, Davey, and Luke, we talked to them. They both were saying how they, expect there to be a lot of terrain in the game. They, if you look in the rules, it says 25%.
Who's running this event?
I don't know, but it.
Oh, so it may not be.
It may not. So okay, but it.
I don't want to get into the pointing fingers because we don't know who's responsible for it.
But withdrawn.
We do know that Alex and Luke both have a concept of how a tabletop war game is supposed to play. Speaking with them,
they
both
do
know
enough
that.
Testing,
yeah, and there was, it says recommended 25% of the table covered, which is pretty much the established rule of thumb for wargaming.
Right, but I mean, what it is matters too. If it's just
you want to have a good mix.
Yeah, you want to have a good mix, and out there it's just big rocks and obstacles.
Sure.
But Josh, what do I do if I'm playing at home, but I don't have access to all these great little terrain features?
Buy a 3D printer.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I mean, if you're playing at home, really all you got to do is cut out some cardboard and say area terrain at least.
Yeah. The felt aisle at Walmart or
Michael's. Or Michael's.
That always works.
Excellent stuff.
I
mean, you can go to.
These are trees.
Yeah, you can go to PetSmart and grab logs from aquarium
stuff. Some of those can be a little.
Yeah, they can be expensive.
But they're there.
You can use
can
paper
have
towels. You can use Tupperware. We talked about this, right when we first started the podcast on a hobby. The hobby section.
We've still some of our best for looking terrain is your Tupperware buildings.
Yeah, so. You can easily make stuff.
He spent time building and painting.
But the quality and amount of terrain that is in this store right now is infinitely better for variety. For a bunch of reasons than what's on that table out there.
We got to worry about maybe a dozen tables at most days.
I don't think they have more than 16 tables there.
Oh, well.
But when you're charging, when you're charging as much as you do for entrance and for registration, there is an expectation of certain level of professionalism with the tables.
And and that doesn't even account for I bought plane tickets from Las Vegas all the way out to. Downtown DC, where I'm spending $200 a night on a hotel.
Yeah,
and I think taking time off of work because it's on a Thursday.
The biggest
why
issue.
Spend all that money on a hotel when you can be murdered in the streets for free?
I know, right? In glorious Crystal City.
I think one of the biggest issues with that in a tournament is not so much just the lack of sightliness of the table, but I would say
people are building.
It affects it affects the play of the game. That's the thing. And
it does.
Because a unit, say like an ATST, which becomes infinitely better when there's no terrain on the table.
Sure.
Than when they're, when you're playing with a properly dense terrain.
And I think it is an issue. A 40K player comes by and looks at, first game, this is clown shoes. This is, and I think there's an identity crisis with the game to a point. Because FFG has said on our podcast that, hey, this is an accessible game for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But then they're going to say, well, it's an accessible game, but then also do premier level events, world championships.
Sure.
But then you put, casual level stuff on the table.
Okay.
It's not, if you want it to be a casual game, be a casual game.
Is FFG providing this terrain?
From what I've heard, yes.
Well, so we don't know that, so we can't point fingers at it.
Sure.
Right. So we need more information on that. Okay.
The fact that it is the same at 2 entire tournaments is, I think, meh.
Well, listeners out there, send us some reports of what the actual tables look like mid-game at Nova, because who knows, it may change.
Yep.
That could have just been some early preliminary stuff. So we're anxiously waiting to see what happens with that. Now, if you're playing at home and you don't have access to lots of that terrain, and you want to make some unique rules, maybe for narrative or whatever, there were some people on the chat who come up with some pretty cool ideas, and I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that because, Star Wars, one of the greatest things about having the forest planet and snow planet and
desert
beach planet.
Yeah.
Don't forget lava planet.
Exactly. Yeah. Not only do you have these different scenery and bases and stuff like that, but you also could play with different rules. Now, the Legion rules that we have at the moment are very, open world, kind of fit to any planet, but you can kind of come up with some cool rules based on what you would expect to have.
So more of a narrative-driven table based on, we're going to pick out a planet in Mustafar or Kashyyyk or something.
So say you're playing, we've seen some really cool Scarif bases or Scarif boards. Now you would expect that troopers coming in off the beach or running through the shallow water would probably move differently than they would if they were actually on.
Oh, yeah, they get sand in their cod pieces and whatnot. It'll slow you right down. Have you ever run with a sandy cod piece?
I haven't.
Me either, but I imagine it's horrible.
I feel like that should be an Olympic sport.
Yeah, so that's totally not a cod piece.
The Sandy Codpiece 500.
Yeah.
So I hear that's a bowl game this year.
It might as well be. We'll see you there, UCF. But yeah, so what happens if you're running through the shallow water? You would expect that you move a little bit differently. So we came up with, somebody, not us, but somebody came up with a cool little chart that would explain the differences you might expect. So shallow water.
The main rule book.
This exact one?
This one's
it's the extended chart for all the different terrains. So it's a good resource.
But you could apply it to different planets though too. So say if you're playing on a Hoth planet, okay. Now,
and this is beyond like the hostile environments condition.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you got a condition card that applies to removing suppression when you're next to terrain pieces, but.
This kind of reminds me of the like the realm tables for like Age of Sigmar and things like that. So,
exactly.
Yeah, so you're playing on a very, I want to say harsh, but something is very different in this environment than you would find on like a standard M-class planet in Star Wars.
Yeah, so
like Hoth, everything would be difficult terrain.
Yeah, but if you're a trooper. But if you're an airspeeder...
Sure, it doesn't matter. Or a walker or something.
What if the cold is interfering with the gears on your ATRT and they start losing actions? Maybe they're always malfunctioning.
That could be something too. And, in Hoth, you're not seeing a lot of terrain. You may see an ice cave here or there, or a little outcropping of rocks sticking up, but for the most part, it's fairly flat. So... that would change the way the game plays despite not having any actual terrain on the board.
I would love to see a board that is, no kidding, an urban board. Like Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just tall buildings and alleyways and roads.
Actually,
and then maybe there's a couple of, Times Square type places where it's open and your objective's in the middle of that. But you've got to navigate all of the roads and stuff to get there.
So one of the guys that plays here at the store, he's just getting into Legion, but he had gone on a Kickstarter and is basically, it's a bunch of like modular corridors and things for a sci-fi setting like Infinity or something like that. But we're already setting up where we're going to be doing the storming of the Tantive 4. Basically, so it's a bunch of channel hallways, some larger rooms, and things like that. So it's going to be all infantry, basically. But
awesome.
Vader versus Leia, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but, he's getting those built and painted right now.
Those are some of the aspects of Legion that maybe we don't talk about enough because there's a lot of narrative to be had there. I mean, we already know some of those cool actual battles that we've seen in the movies, like you said with Tantive 4. But there's a lot of like ones you can create too.
I mean, how many people want to play like a Battle of Helm's Deep kind of scenario?
Right.
They have a bunch of speeder bikes coming in, like the like the charge of the Pelennor Field, something like that.
Yeah, except they're the bad guys. But anyways.
But I mean, you can use your imagination to come up with things like that. But there's a lot of narrative things you can do with that, and some of the I mean, especially like so you mentioned that like the Clone Wars battles, it would be really cool because there was one of the early ones, it was the guy that did the Samurai Jack animation. Oh, yeah.
But there was like a big jousting scene between the different speeder bikes, so that'd be really cool to stage something like that.
It was like Gennady something or another, right?
Something, yeah.
It's like Russian.
Don't remember off the top of my head, but especially when more units are available in the future.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool way to do things. And of course, you may want to mess with your army lists, like maybe a straight 800 versus 800 point battle wouldn't work for this situation.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make it a little bit more.
No heavies.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
But I'm saying like a little bit more asymmetrical. You know,
How
you could do...
fun would it be to do a Mustafar map with like bridges and walkways?
Absolutely.
Because there are table mats out there that I think Table War, we've got one from them that's got a bunch of lava on it. But then you can have fun with like force push and like throw them into the lava and have rules for that.
That would be awesome.
That would make force push. It would go back to the former glory days of force push before I realized what battle meditation did.
Yeah. Oh man.
And of course, all of the bridges have no railings.
No, yeah,
because that's
very unsafe there.
Yeah.
Not true.
There's
You're
no
playing in an Ewok village.
Ewoks.
Because the Ewoks had railings.
They do.
And they were the only ones with an OSHA.
And it's funny because their railings were actually set up for human height, not Ewok.
Almost as if they intended to have some kind of golden robotic god come from the skies.
It's probably from their taskmasters who come to collect the coffee harvest from them. So,
wait, are you saying that they're not free trade? That they're not their own autonomous coffee
the
producers?
dirty secret is out. Oh, no.
I'm taking my calf back. I demand free trade Ewok. They need to be compensated for their labor properly.
Oh, they are. They get those trinkets.
Just wait till they branch out into whatever serves as pumpkin spice for the Star Wars universe.
Man. Yeah, they ate the pumpkin as they ate the beans, and then. But so back to the Mustafar, and then you could have like a big hill in the middle, and then whoever claims the high ground.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
You need to seize the high ground. That's the objective, and you're like at a disadvantage if you're trying to.
If they underestimate your power, and then trying to do that.
You come up with our own scenario cards for these matches.
Oh, that's fun. We should actually try to set something like that up here in the future.
I like it. So send us your ideas, guys. If you got some cool ideas for coming up with narrative scenarios for a little one-off.
Do an Echo base scenario,
game.
Maybe with those hallways. That'd be kind of cool.
Hangar Bay or two.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Or I saw somebody had done an urban Naboo board.
Oh, really?
That was kind of cool. With
Streets of Jeddah or something.
Yeah,
Streets of Jeddah
something
would
like
be
that.
awesome.
Yeah. That's the kind of urban board that we need for the game.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Something like a ruined Stalingrad kind of that style board.
I mean, and you think about it. I mean, that's where a lot of war is fought. You know, a lot of war is fought in urban environments.
Not on the grassy fields of Naboo?
No, not really. I mean, especially nowadays. But I'd like to see urban terrain. I'd like to see urban fights.
Yeah.
Somebody's fighting. Somebody's fighting over these cities.
Yeah, they're not all just destroyed. Whole,
No,
like
it's not
like
Napoleonic War where we all meet in a field and fall over like Goodfellows. It's gritty and grimdark.
I thought stormtroopers were good at that, though. I thought they'd all line up with their nice shiny white armor. And...
Not with my red dice, they don't.
How many did you blink today?
Not a whole lot on the stormtroopers.
There was just that one with when Vader took 3 hits. 0 for 3. That was fun.
So next week, guys, unfortunately, I'm going to be off the show again. So
Woo, party!
Josh is taking over. So.
All right, so we'll do your first podcast of X-Wing 2.0.
No, you stay away from that. Now that I know you've got your coin to protect.
And thank you, by the way, because Friday's my birthday, so not having you around is the
go.
best present anybody could ask for. Joking.
Well, happy birthday,
I know,
man.
right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you guys for listening, and join us next week for Matt ruining the show. Matt and Josh ruining the show.
Yeah! Woo!
We couldn't ruin it any further.
All right, take it easy, Outriders.
You've been listening to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tatooine Network.
Only now, at the end, do you understand?
For more from the Outriders, make sure you like us on Twitter @Legion Outriders, subscribe to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Legion Outriders, and make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for listening.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.